As percussionists, we are unusual. We're an unusual bunch. I remember from high school, my band director always getting on the percussionists for everything from balancing mallets on our nose to being completely unorganized, or all kinds of instrument problems, not having the right sticks, not having the right mallets. And I thought about it, and I thought, why are percussionists, younger students, and sometimes college age and graduate students, unorganized and always seem to be having all kinds of problems? And we oftentimes deem percussionists as my band director back in high school said, he said, they're dumb drummers. And where does that come from? Well, first off, we have to realize that percussionists play a family of instruments. We are not typical of maybe a violinist or a clarinet player or a flute player where you play one instrument. We play an entire family of instruments. And to add a little humor here, I spoke with a friend of mine, and she didn't know what I did. And she asked me, so what exactly do you do for a living? I know you're in music, but what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a percussionist. And I kind of got the look like, percussionist? What? And I thought, I'll save you the hassle. Percussionist, I'm a drummer. Oh, you play the drums. Okay, now I understand. And she said, well, I find that the drums, I really like the drums, and what exactly do you play? And I said, well, as a percussionist, I play all the instruments. I play snare drum, xylophone, glockenspiel, timpani. She said, well, how many instruments do you actually play? And I thought about it for a while, and I realized we play about 1,000 instruments, maybe 2,000. She said, 2,000? You actually play that many? Well, I said, yeah, we're responsible for a family of instruments. And as students, playing 1,000 instruments is tough. It adds an extra challenge. But with every challenge, there's an opportunity. And I often say to my students, they say, well, I have time balancing between timpani and snare drum and marimba, and I have this multiple percussion piece, and they often say, I wish I just had one instrument to focus on. But every challenge is an opportunity, and I said, you never get bored. I mean, think about it. You spend 2 hours practicing marimba, and you're working on a piece, and you take a break, and you step over to snare drum, and you have a whole nother series of, a whole nother set of music and sounds. With every challenge, there's an opportunity for growth. So when you think about it, it's wonderful that we play so many instruments. I mean, we play hand drums, we play ethnic instruments. We play pitched instruments and non-pitched instruments. And that's such a wonderful opportunity because we can never get bored. Never get bored. There's always room for growth. So I have 3 points to make. That's the first one. The second point about percussionists is, again, back to my high school and college days. I remember my band director handing out the percussion parts to us, and he said, percussion, we're going to sight read this piece, here's the music. Plunk, it was this thick. And he said, let me hand out the saxophone parts and the euphonium, and everybody starts practicing. And when he handed out the percussion parts, I hate to say it, but you get a stack of music this high, it was mass chaos. Who's playing what? Who's going to play what drum? Who's covering xylophone? Oh, well, the xylophone and the bell part go at the same time, so we have to have 2 people playing that. Mass confusion. And when you think about it, percussionists are the only ones that not only have to have that type of organization. In a concert percussion setting, you constantly have to deal with part assignments, but you not only that, but you have to play each other's instruments, and oftentimes you use each other's sticks, because one person may play xylophone for the first movement, and then because of part assignments, another person comes over and plays, or snare drum. So it's incredibly challenging again, but with every challenge, there's an opportunity. And what a wonderful opportunity there is that I find that percussionists are incredibly close. And because we play each other's instruments and we need so much organization, that we work incredibly well together. And there's a sort of family or bond with percussionists. So the challenge is, can we organize and can we use each other's sticks and mallets and instruments? And the answer is yes, we can. And because of that, we come together much different than many other instruments. The third point I'd like to make is how percussionists oftentimes, our instruments are, I would hate to say everywhere, but in a band room or an orchestra room, in an educational institution, there's instruments everywhere. And at Interlochen is a good example. So oftentimes we have to move the marimbas into the hallway if we're rehearsing a different piece. And of course, if somebody's walking down the hallway and the marimba's not covered, the tendency is to reach over and tap on your finger. It's not something you would do if a violin was sitting out. Oh, look, and you would tap a violin. And I'll relate a story about when I was in early high school. I was learning a piece for district solo and ensemble or something. My band director gave it to me, and I was practicing. And I would go in a lunch hour and I would practice. And as I'm practicing every day, there was a woodwind. I think she was a flute player. Would come through the band room, and she was also a pianist, and she'd see me practicing. Well, after about 2 weeks, she came through and she came up and started talking to me. She said, "Oh, you've been working on this piece for a long time." I said, "Yeah, I almost have the first page learned, and I'm really proud of it." And I sort of felt very proud, and I had my self-esteem and my confidence was going up, and I was feeling good. And she kind of grabbed the mallets from me and said, let me try that. And being a pianist, she kind of pretty much read the first page straight down. And as a young student, that was incredibly deflating to me. And I think it's the same when people touch our instruments or tap on our instruments or in an educational institution, maybe something will happen, a drum will fall over and people will laugh and they'll say, "Oh, drum roll please." But it's funny, if a trumpet or a string instrument were to fall, everybody reacts so dramatically. So it's interesting what that does to students, young and old, how that affects their mentality. And like I said, every challenge is an opportunity. And so the opportunity there, I think, is to develop high artistic standards for percussionists. They have to gain respect, they have to command respect. And if they say they cover instruments, they keep things well organized, they will then become more protective of their instruments. And if they take sort of ownership over the instruments, even if they're the schools, they become more proud and they walk like an artist, as opposed to kind of that drummer mentality. So, just going over, this is what I spoke to the students at Western Illinois University when I was there in the fall, and this was the beginning to my clinic, and I presented a clinic to the music education students at the university, as well as the percussionists. And it just gives us a perspective on what we do as percussionists and how we are different. But being different isn't such a bad thing. And with, like I said, every challenge is an opportunity. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for percussionists out there to have a different artistic standard, be proud of what they do, to be well organized and bond together, and to be happy about playing 1,000 instruments. It can be wonderful. Thank you.